A prophetic dream made Qin Li see a tragic future for herself and her entire family. Her father and brother died tragically, the Marquis' mansion was overthrown, and even she herself died with resentment for believing in villains. Nightmares awaken, seeing storms approaching and destruction looming. She changed her gentle demeanor and shouldered the entire Dingbei Marquis' mansion with her own strength, protecting her close relatives and friends with a strong iron wrist. The scumbag's fiancé came to bully her, and she retired directly. The hypocritical and vicious sisters pretends to be a little white flower, and she exposes the hypocrisy of the villain. My father's concubine attempted to elope, and she quickly sent him to prison. The tribe members who didn't have long eyes wanted to take advantage of the fire and plunder, so she simply expelled these cunning individuals with empty blood ties from the family tree. Unfortunately, the legitimate prince who held a noble position and was in charge of the world with a flick of his finger became a part of her miscalculation. Qin Li was puzzled and said, "Ji Wuchuan, you should know that we have only been in a cooperative relationship from beginning to end." The man smiled clearly and said, "Ali, you should also know that the best way to maintain a stable cooperative relationship is to become a couple." Chapter 1. Seizing the Fire and Robbing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The continuous cloudy autumn rain has been falling in the capital for several days. Make the entire city seem wrapped in huge and gloomy bubbles, making people feel suffocated just by looking at it. The Qin family of Dingbei Marquis' mansion, located to the east of the city, now looked like everyone was facing a great crisis. The city of Beimingwen was destroyed, and the 130,000 soldiers of Dingbei suffered heavy casualties. The court invested a lot of manpower and material resources and spent a year on the battlefield, but this result was achieved. Can you imagine what will be waiting for the Dingbei Marquis' mansion next? Unfortunately, the house leaks and it rains continuously at night. 3 days ago, news of the defeat at Beimingwen returned to the capital, and upon hearing the bad news, the young lady of Dingbei Marquis' mansion, Qin Li, suddenly fainted. Plus today, it has been 3 consecutive days with a high fever that has not subsided. If this continues, I'm afraid even if someone is rescued, they will still be foolish to burn. At that time, the maids and women who were serving in the Han Dan courtyard were all melancholic and gathered in groups of 3 or 5, quietly discussing their future destinies. The old Marquis and 3 young masters suffered a defeat in the north. These days, when I went out to buy, I saw many sneaky people wandering around our Marquis' mansion. Their green eyes were like a vicious dog smelling the fragrance of meat, wanting to rush up and bite off a piece immediately. Dingbei Marquis' mansion has been deeply favored by the emperor for many years, and the mansion has been bestowed with many good things by the emperor. In addition, our deceased Marquis' wife was once the only daughter of Shengong, the richest man in the great Liang dynasty. The wealth and status of the mansion can be imagined. Now that the Marquis' mansion has suffered this disaster, the huge family business has been secretly targeted, isn't it? Ah! When people are unlucky, they feel like they are choking their teeth when drinking water. Unfortunately, at this time, the young lady fell ill. Before the Marquis led the army to set out, he entrusted the entire Marquis' mansion to the young lady to take care of. Now the situation in the north is unclear. The young lady in the mansion is seriously ill, and the family lacks the backbone. It's about to become chaotic. Shoo! You can't say this out loud. Han Dan Yuan is sick, while Bai Hua Yuan is in a hurry to seize power. Haven't you noticed these past few days? The people from Bai Hua Yuan frequently come and go to the mansion's accounting room, which makes them feel uneasy. The one in the Bai Hua Yuan is just a concubine. If it weren't for her contribution to giving birth to a young master, such a despicable person who voluntarily climbed onto the master's bed would have been dragged out and killed long ago. How could she have the good fortune of eating and drinking spicy food? Let's wait. As long as the young lady wakes up, according to her temper, she will not be easily spared. After hearing this insightful nanny say these words, a faint sigh came from someone's mouth. Hey! Then the young lady needs to wake up to tidy up. Asterisk as the center of discussion, Qin Li was lying on the bed with rapid breathing. The continuous high fever made her whole body scorching hot, and no matter what method was used, she couldn't get rid of that damn high fever. At present, watching her break out in a cold sweat and her once beautiful and alluring appearance pale and colorless, the close maids Hong Jin and Lan Qi who were serving her quickly stepped forward again to wipe and change her clothes. A series of low calls, several pairs of worried and tearful eyes, also anxiously landed on Qin Li, hoping that she could get through this hurdle and wake up quickly. As for Qin Li, who seemed to be unaware of everything lying in bed, it was not as the outside world claimed that she couldn't get up completely, but rather that she was plunged into a terrifying nightmare. In the nightmare, she witnessed her father and brother's tragic death with her own eyes, watched as she married a non-human, watched as the Dingbei Marquis' mansion was in disarray, watched as the person she regarded as her closest relative and loved one conspired and schemed against her. From behind, until the end even she died in despair and regret, unable to close her eyes. This nightmare is too real for her, so real that it seems to have been personally experienced and deeply engraved in her heart. And just as she struggled in this nightmare and couldn't extricate herself, suddenly someone knocked on the door of her boudoir from outside. Follow, the servant reports that Prince Linyang, Shaoji, has arrived. Upon hearing the word Shaoji, Qin Li, who was originally unconscious, felt as if she had been fiercely stabbed. Her eyes, which had been tightly closed for 3 days, suddenly opened at this moment, and Hong Jin, who was waiting by the bed, exclaimed in shock. "Miss, are you awake?" "Miss is awake." The pleasurable cheers spread outside the door, making the servants serving in the Han Dan courtyard breathe a sigh of relief. For some unknown reason, although the Dingbei Marquis' mansion was currently in turmoil, everyone breathed a sigh of relief when they heard the news of the young lady's awakening. At the same time, there is a feeling that arises from everyone's heart. As long as the young lady can wake up, the Marquis' mansion can be preserved. Asterisk at the same time, in the flower hall in the front courtyard of the Ho mansion Qinjiarui, dressed in a light pink brocade long dress, was dressed as a woman, leaning delicately in the arms of Prince Linyang Shaoji, while caressing her still flat lower abdomen with a coquettish expression. "Brother Ji, isn't it a bit bad for us to come to find Ali at this time? After all, the current situation of the Dingbei Marquis' mansion in the capital is not good. If we come here at this time, it is difficult to guarantee that there will be no suspicion of being robbed while taking advantage of the fire." Looking at the delicate and charming beauty in his arms, Shaoji's charming face showed great satisfaction. He hugged Qinjiarui's slender waist and affectionately pinched her soft flesh twice, revealing a frivolous expression in her slender peach blossom eyes. "I understand Qin Li's personality and would rather bend than bend. Apart from her good background and appearance, there is nothing that can compare to my Rui heir's intelligence and interest. You have been serving me wholeheartedly for so long, and I still have my flesh and blood in your eyes. Of course, I want to give your mother and son a place, otherwise, wouldn't you have wronged my heart and liver?" Upon hearing Shaoji's words, Qinjiarui's smile triumphed greatly. However, after thinking of Qin Li's calm and confident demeanor, she still felt a little guilty. "Brother Ji, but I'm afraid." "What are you afraid of? You're carrying my seed now, with me supporting you, who can do anything to you?" Shaoji teasingly lifted Qin Jiao's weak chin and looked at the captivating eyes, his heart racing again. Qin Lanshan, the Marquis of Dingbei, suffered a great defeat at Beimingwen, involving 130,000 Dingbei soldiers with heavy casualties. Even if that old man can come back alive, he will not escape the emperor's heavy responsibility. Nowadays, the Marquis' mansion is in dire straits. The reason why the Marquis' mansion has a chance to breathe in the capital is somewhat related to our Linyang prince's mansion by marriage. As long as Qin Li is not foolish, she should know that in order to maintain the Marquis' mansion at this time, the first thing she cannot offend is this crown prince. Don't worry, at this moment, let's not just ask Qin Li to agree to you becoming my concubine. Even if we ask her to give up her identity as a future crown princess, she must consider me obediently. Sweetheart, you're right. Today, we're here to seize the opportunity. Chapter 2. Verification of Dreams. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Compared to the scheming of the matchless couple in the front courtyard flower hall, Qin Li, who was already supported by a maid and sitting in front of the dressing table, stared blankly at her pale and childish face in the bronze mirror. In her mind, scenes flashed with bloodshed and cruelty, and every time she switched scenes, relatives died tragically in front of her. In her nightmare, her face gradually withered and her vitality was stripped away. In the end, even before 30, she was already withered to the point where she was comparable to an old woman, with a graying head and dying in a pool of blood and curses. After waking up, she wanted to tell herself that this strange dream couldn't be taken seriously. However, there was always a voice in her mind reminding her that everything she experienced in her dream was about to happen to her in the future. If she didn't want to repeat the same mistake, she must react immediately from now on. Red Jean looked at the young lady who had been staring at the copper mirror silently since waking up, thinking she had fallen into a mischief. She asked with worried eyes, "Miss, what's wrong with you? You've been in a coma for 3 days, and I've been waiting for you to wake up. You must not have anything to do." Upon hearing the trembling cry of Hong Jin, Qin Li turned around and looked at the 2 close maids who were loyal to her. Hong Jin has a delicate mind and was a personal maid specially chosen by her mother during her lifetime. She has been highly valued by her for many years. She once thought that when Hong Jin grew up a little longer, she would marry a good family for her and let her live a normal and happy life. But the red brocade in the dream did not wait for this day. In the nightmare, Hong Jin accompanied her to marry into the Linyang prince's mansion, where the Dingbei Marquis' mansion was already fragmented. Her father and brother's life and death were uncertain. She trusted the crown prince of Linyang, Xiao Ji, to save the Marquis' mansion and regarded him as the most trustworthy person, so she hastily married him with a dowry that could rival the country's wealth. But unexpectedly, this marriage led her into a real hell. She entrusted someone else, watching helplessly as her dowry was deceived and her loved ones died tragically. In the end, even the body of her maid, Hong Jin, was retrieved from the cold pool water. At that moment it was too late to regret. She was deeply trapped in the prison of the royal mansion and tormented by the righteous disciple Xiao Ji for a full 10 years. Until in the end, she was drained of all the available value from her body before being stabbed to death by a knife he despised. She couldn't forget every scene she experienced in her nightmare, especially the proud appearance of Xiao Ji in front of her at the last moment of her life. He personally told her that when he married her, he was only interested in her rich dowry and the heritage of the Marquis' mansion. Over the years, he allowed her to live and occupy the position of crown princess, also for the reputation of the Linyang prince's mansion. After all, when the northern Marquis' mansion was unstable, everyone in the capital avoided her. However, at that time, Xiao Ji did not mind marrying her into the royal palace, which later earned him many good names. When others mention it, who doesn't give a thumbs up and loudly praise Xiao Ji for his loyalty and righteousness? Now that the new emperor has just been established, Xiao Ji, as a meritorious minister from the dragon, is waiting for him with extraordinary wealth and status. Naturally, he no longer needs to keep her useless wife to earn a good name for himself. So, waiting for her, there is only one death left. The knife in the nightmare pierced deep into the bone marrow. Even though Qin Li knew her body was intact at this moment, the indescribable pain still kept her company. She held back the tears that were about to burst from her eyes, tightly grasping the soft hand of Hong Jin, and looked at the 2 close maids surrounding her with guilt. After a long time, a firm voice squeezed out of my throat, "This time, I will definitely take care of you." Red Jean and Blue Chi looked at the tearful young lady, thinking she was feeling unwell and anxious like ants in a hot pot. At this moment, Qin Li completely calmed herself down. Although she didn't believe in any ghosts or supernatural powers in this world, the nightmare that came was too strange. It was like a warning, reminding her that if she didn't do anything, everything in her dream would come true. So, she must gather her energy at this moment to verify. Qin Li took a deep breath, wiped away the moisture from the corners of her eyes, and asked the maid kneeling at the door in a hoarse voice due to a high fever, "Prince Linyang, did you come alone?" The maid replied, "Miss, the crown prince came with Miss Jiaorui." Red Brocade's face lit up with joy and she quickly said, "My servant said that Miss Jiaorui is close to our young lady. She must know that you are sick, that's why she came to visit." Glancing at the innocent Red Brocade, Qin Li's face flashed with a cold color. She will not forget that in her dream, it was Qin Jiaorui who conspired with Shao Ji, that scumbag, to calculate her to the end step by step. I won't forget that when she collapsed in a pool of blood, it was also her own confession from Qin Jiaorui that she had no children these years because she had tampered with her diet. A woman who on the surface cried out for her sisters, but behind her, she wanted to kill her everywhere. This is the true face of Qin Jiaorui. Unexpectedly, before she went to meet her good sisters, for a while, the woman came to her door on her own initiative. Qin Li carefully recalled everything she had seen in her dream. If the prediction in her dream was correct, today Shao Ji and Qin Jiaorui took the initiative to come to her door and ask for a place. Thinking of what might happen next, Qin Li looked at her young and immature self in the bronze mirror and gritted her teeth secretly. Since the heavens have treated her well in the dark, she must not watch those despicable people trample on the accumulated bones of her Marquis' mansion and enjoy the wealth and prosperity of others. Red Jean, Blue Chi, help me dress up. I'll go meet our crown prince and Qin Jiaorui for a while now. Looking at the young lady who was still weak, Hong Jin worried and said, "Miss, you're not feeling well right now. Why don't you invite the crown prince and Miss Jiaorui to the Han Dan Academy? You and the crown prince are also engaged, and Miss Jiaorui will accompany you when you grow up, so it won't affect these formalities." Qin Li picked up the lipstick from the dressing table and gently applied it to her delicate lips. She looked at the bright red on her lips and slowly smiled, like a fierce ghost crawling back from hell, with blood in its mouth, speaking slowly. In the past, there was no need to care about these formalities, but from now on, we need to talk about them separately. Red Jean was puzzled and tried to persuade, but was interrupted by Qin Li's voice. "Hurry up, we can't make the guests wait too quickly. At this moment, 80% of our crown prince is still waiting for us to congratulate him on his wedding." Red Jean and Blue Chi were even more puzzled, but they still acted swiftly to tidy up and dress up the young lady. At the moment when Qin Li appeared in the front courtyard flower hall, dragging her legs that had just woken up and had softened, and the master and servant saw Qin Jiaorui leaning against Shao Ji's embrace with a delicate and shy expression on her face, Qin Li appeared particularly calm compared to the frightened two maids beside her. At this moment, she finally affirmed that everything she saw and experienced in her dream was true. Chapter 3. Tearing the Face. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Qin Jiaorui's eyes were sharp, and she noticed Qin Li being helped by a maid. She quickly put away the panic on her face, crying bitterly, and ran weakly towards Qin Li, kneeling down and pleading. "Sister, don't misunderstand. Everything is not what you see. Don't blame Brother Ji, they are all sisters. It's me who can't help but admire Brother Ji too much, that's why." Looking at Qin Jiaorui, who was crying and almost fainting while holding her legs, Qin Li's pair of pitch-black eyes stared at her without blinking. The self who secretly cursed in the past was really blind. How could she be deceived by such a hypocritical little person, treating her as a close friend and treating her with heart and soul? Red Jean regained her senses from her shock and looked at Qin Jiaoyan, who was crying so pitifully. Her face turned red with anger. She was about to teach her own young lady a lesson about this shameless thing, but was interrupted by the sudden coughing of the young lady. Red Jean quickly went to see the young lady, but saw that she was not surprised or angry. She looked at Qin Jiaorui, who was kneeling on the ground crying and trembling with pleasure. The calm and unusual young lady surprised Hong Jin, and at the same time, a strange sentence that the young lady said while dressing sounded in her ear. Did the young lady already know that Qin Jiaowei had an affair with Prince Xiao? Thinking of this possibility, Hong Jin returned. Because she believed that with her young lady's abilities, if the initiative in this matter was in her hands, the unlucky person would have to say something else. Xiao Ji looked at Qin Jiaowei's pitiful crying and felt heartbroken. He stepped forward and helped Qin Jiaowei up, kneeling beside Qin Li's leg. With a hint of dissatisfaction, he said, "Ali, why are you so cruel? Jiaowei is crying like this. Do you still want to bully her?" Upon hearing Xiao Ji's voice, Qin Li finally turned her gaze from Qin Jiaowei to him. "It's the man in front of me. In the future, she will work together with Qin Jiaowei to send her step by step to hell, watching her suffer from torture and even leaning on her body to suck up all her blood. Such a beast, how could she see him as a good match in the past? Now, watching him hold Qin Jiaowei and scold her with a heart-wrenching expression on his face, Qin Li felt extremely nauseous and sneered at her. What does Xiao Shizi mean by this? Which eye did you see me bullying Jiaowei's sister? It's clear that she suddenly pounced on me like a crazy wild chicken and scared me. How could it all end up being my fault?" Qin Jiaowei, who was crying in Xiao Ji's arms, suddenly heard Qin Li say she was a wild chicken and stopped crying on the spot. Her face turned green and red, and she said, "Sister, how can you say that about me? Yo! Stop crying, that's good. Let's talk about it now. Why do you, Qin Jiaowei, lean against my fiancé's arms? Why do you call my fiancé a brother G. Watching Qin Li walk into the flower hall with a calm and composed expression, while Xiao Ji and Qin Jiaowei stand still, they are somewhat puzzled. According to their imagination, the development of things should not be as it is now. Nowadays, the Dingbei Marquis mansion is at the forefront of the storm, with internal and external difficulties. Even if Qin Li could stand here well, she shouldn't be so calm. But now Qin Li, not to mention showing her a fragile expression, even her overall aura is even stronger than before. Her whole body is surprisingly calm and composed, even her slightly sickly eyebrows and eyes are not angry. In the past, Qin Li was a wise and imposing presence, but today she is more like an unsheathed sword. Seemingly gentle, but in reality, there is a fierce aura in the eyes. Even a faint glance at the end of an eye can startle one's heart. Xiao Ji and Qin Jiaowei were both people who grew up with Qin Li and knew her very well. But now, as they watched Qin Li sitting in the main seat gracefully drinking tea, both of them began to feel uneasy as they played small drums, vaguely feeling that the Qin Li in front of them was too hard for them to see through. Qin Jiaowei struggled to swallow her saliva and opened her mouth anxiously. "Sister, Brother Ji and I have a perfect match. I know I'm sorry for my actions, but there is no right or wrong relationship. If sister wants to blame me, just punish me alone." As she spoke, Qin Jiaowei knelt down again in tears, vividly portraying her delicate and infatuated daughter's demeanor. Xiao Ji looked at Qin Jiaowei, who was infatuated with him, and became even more determined. With just one step of his long legs, he stepped out and protected Qin Jiaowei behind him. "Ali, since you have seen everything now, I will open the window and speak frankly. Today, I bring Jiaowei to tell you that she is pregnant with my flesh and blood, and I have recognized this child." With these words, Xiao Ji also looked at Qin Jiaowei in his arms with a deep look and continued, "As the future prince and concubine of Linyang Mansion, you should be gracious. Besides, this person is a good sister who grew up with you. I plan to take Jiaowei as my precious concubine. You should also nod and answer." Looking at the scene in front of him, Qin Li was almost sick. In her dream, how could she be so soft-hearted and easily believe the lies of the dog man and woman in front of her? For a moment, she softened her heart and agreed to let Xiao Jina, Qin Jiaowei, this snake and scorpion, enter the royal palace. God knows, it was precisely because of this mistake that it brought her a humiliating life for the next 10 years. Thinking of the future, one's own relatives will die one after another due to these two ambitious things in front of them. The vast Dingbei Marquis mansion would come to an end due to their greed, and Qin Li's contemptuous and hateful gaze fell on Xiao Ji's arrogant face. After taking a deep breath, he slowly spoke out. Originally, Crown Prince Xiao still remembered that I was the future Crown Princess of your Linyang Prince's mansion. Before your legitimate wife married into the house, she had a wild relationship with women outside. Now, she brought a pregnant woman to me and asked me to nod her head to welcome her into the house. Xiao Ji, bullying someone to your level can already be described as shameless, right? Xiao Ji was said to be shameless, and his face turned black on the spot. Qin Li, I am now discussing with you in a friendly manner. Don't be shameless and don't even think about it. What kind of situation do you think the Northern Marquis mansion is in the capital now? As Xiao Ji was infuriated by Qin Li's words, Chen Jiarui immediately intervened and timidly covered her stomach, crying, "Sister, I know you're angry, but you can't say that Ji's child is a wild seed. Chen Jiarui, put away your disgusting acting style for me." At present, what Qin Li couldn't bear to see the most was this woman continuing to pretend in acting. In his face, he never hid his dislike for her. Sister. Who is your sister? I don't have such a shameless and evil sisters like you. Chapter 4. Huff. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After scolding Chen Jiarui, Qin Li chuckled lightly and looked up at Xiao Ji, who had a strong sense of superiority. She continued, "Just now, I heard the meaning of Prince Xiao's words as a warning." Why? The prince is hinting at me that the Northern Marquis mansion is about to collapse, that's why he dares to bring such a thing to disgust me. Sister, how can you say that about me? Seeing Chen Jiarui shed tears of sorrow again, Qin Li's eyes were filled with a fierce expression. Am I wrong? Chen Jiarui, your grandfather faithfully followed my grandfather and passed away due to illness. It was because you lost your father and mother since childhood that your grandfather brought you to take care of and grow up with me. From childhood to adulthood, you have everything that Qin Li has, and no one in the whole family sees you as a servant. Whether it's my Qin family or my grandfather's family, they are not insignificant to you. But how did you repay us? You knew I had an engagement with him, Xiao Ji, but you still had a secret affair with him. You even chose to appear in front of me during the ups and downs of my Dingbei Marquis mansion and reveal that you were pregnant. You two teamed up to set up such a stage, hoping to take advantage of the weak situation in my Marquis mansion and force me to swallow your disgusting matter. I tell you, Qin Li is not something you can calculate. Xiao Ji could see that it was not easy to get Qin Li's permission for his heartfelt son to enter the door. Since that's the case, don't blame him for being impolite. Qin Li, you're really right. Today, I'm here to ask you to agree to Jiarui's entry. It depends on the weak situation of your Marquis mansion and taking advantage of the fire to rob. Since you are aware of the current situation in Dingbei Marquis mansion, you should also know that in this situation, if you want to maintain the Marquis mansion, you must rely on my marriage to Linyang Prince's mansion. Your father and brother suffered a defeat at Baiming Pass, and life and death are unknown. In the anger of the emperor, you may collapse your small Marquis mansion at any time. If you don't believe it, you can go out and take a look. How many people are waiting for your family to encounter a major disaster outside, so that you can take this opportunity to rush forward and divide this fat part of the Marquis mansion, counting the current capital city, only my Linyang Prince's mansion can protect you. If you are obedient, based on our past relationship, I am willing to help you. Even the position of the crown princess of the prince's mansion can still be reserved for you. But if you don't understand what's going on, don't blame me for being ruthless towards you. Qin Li laughed angrily upon hearing such shameless words. It's the first time I've heard someone say such despicable things so confidently. Xiao Ji, I underestimated you in the past. I never expected that under your polite animal skin, there was still such a disgusting heart hidden. As she spoke, Qin Li stood up with her chair and looked at the red brocade beside her. Go, prepare your pen and ink, she said. Red Jean had long been trembling with disgust from the dog man and woman in front of her. Now that she heard the young lady's command, she immediately began to take action. Xiao Jimei frowned and looked at Qin Li in confusion. What do you want someone to prepare pen and ink for? Qin Li grinned her lips and said, of course it's time to write a divorce letter. A divorce letter. Looking at Xiao Ji and Qin Jiarui, who were shocked by Qi Qilu's mistake, Qin Li sneered, I have a serious obsession with cleanliness. I find things that others have used dirty. Isn't Xiao Shitzi deeply in love with the beautiful woman in front of me? Alright, miss, I will fulfill you. When you take the divorce letter I wrote to you and terminate our engagement, you can have a good night with your crush. Then, you don't have to run to me and use all means to force me to agree to your concubine. Xiao Ji lost his color in silence, his round eyes almost falling out of his sockets. You're going to take a break from me. That's right, Qin Li is going to take you off today. Qin Li cut off the railway with a nail and said, what's wrong? Are you surprised? Do you think my Dingbei Marquis' mansion wouldn't dare to terminate your engagement with your Linyang prince's mansion at this time? Xiao Ji, I want you to know that without your Linyang prince's mansion, Dingbei Marquis' mansion would still stand firmly in the capital, and no one can shake it. My father and brother suffered a defeat at Beimingwan, but as long as the war with the northern barbarians is not over yet, who dares to jump out and say that our Marquis' mansion will not persist until the end? Those who mock our Marquis' mansion behind their backs, those who wait to see our Marquis' mansion fall, I will firmly remember them, and in the future, I will slowly settle accounts with them. As she spoke, Hong Jin brought the 4 treasures of the study and spread them out in front of Qin Li. Without saying a word, Qin Li swung his pen with a sharp and resolute hand, which was written on the snow-white rice paper. Especially the large character, Xiao, on it was like a slap, fiercely slapping Xiao Ji's face. Xiao Ji looked at Qin Li with a resolute expression, his veins revealing his anger. Qin Li, don't regret it. Qin Li gritted her thumb and fiercely imprinted a deep blood mark on the rice paper with her name written on it. Then, she twisted the written letter of divorce into a ball and slammed it hard on Xiao Ji's body, contemptuously saying, thinking of the past, being with someone like you was the last thing I regretted and humiliated in my life. You. Looking at Xiao Ji, who was so angry that she couldn't even straighten her tongue, Qin Li's cold light turned and she looked at Qin Jiarui, who was protected by Xiao Ji behind her, eliciting a playful grin. I have settled with this cheap man. Now it's time to settle with my good sisters. Qin Jiarui had never seen such a terrifying Qin Li before, especially when she saw her dark eyes, she became even more anxious and nervous. She quickly hugged Xiao Ji's arm and begged for help weakly, Brother Ji. Xiao Ji heard Qin Jiarui's cry for help and supported the little white flower behind him. What are you, shrew, doing to Jiarui? Qin Li looked at the foolish Xiao Ji and snorted contemptuously. As I mentioned earlier, Qin Jiarui's food and clothing have all come from the Dingbei Marquis' mansion over the years. Now that this woman is eating inside and outside, our Marquis' mansion will definitely not keep her. Since you have a crush on her, Xiao Shitzi, then buy her from my hands. What? Buy it? Looking at Xiao Ji with a confused expression on his face, Qin Li really laughed out loud this time. Prince Xiao hasn't realized it yet, has he? Did I just say something that wasn't clear enough? Since that's the case, then I'll say it more clearly. Qin Jiarui's grandfather was my grandfather's steward, and her parents were also servants of my grandfather's family during their lifetime. In other words, although Qin Jiarui has been eating and drinking spicy food with me for years, living a luxurious life like a young lady, her actual identity is a lowly servant. Now, her slave status is still being kept by the Marquis' mansion. Prince Xiao has a unique taste. He has had an affair with the servants of the Dingbei Marquis' mansion and even made a lowly servant carry the bloodline of your Linyang prince's mansion. Now that he has a big belly, you should give him an identity. It's not easy for your future eldest son to be born in the firewood house of our Marquis' mansion. However, please rest assured that as long as Prince Xiao gives me a satisfactory price, I will naturally sell this lowly servant to you generously. Chapter 5. 50,000 Taels of Silver. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Xiao Ji was shocked as he listened to Qin Li reveal the secret of Qin Jiaorui's background. He paused for a while before finally regaining his senses. Turning back, she looked at Qin Jiarui, who was anxiously hiding behind him, and asked in a dry voice, "Is what she said true? Are you really just a servant?" Qin Jiarui trembled her lips and opened her dry mouth as if trying to explain something, but her throat seemed to be blocked by something. Finally, in a fit of anger, Qin Li showed her true colors and glared at Qin Li, who had exposed her true identity in public. Red Jean can no longer listen and stands up to protect the Lord. Who is it that is malicious? Qin Jiarui, feel your conscience and ask yourself, have my young lady ever treated you unfairly over the years because you are a servant's daughter? What are the best things you eat, dress, and use in the Marquis' mansion? Even the servants you serve around you are selected by the young lady according to her own standards, and she orders everyone in the mansion to call you Miss Jiarui. In your eyes, are all these favors and favors fed to dogs? Qin Jiarui wouldn't think that the good days she has enjoyed with Qin Li over the past decade are for nothing. She changed her previous weakness and pitifulness, pushed aside Xiao Ji who was blocking in front of her, and despised Qin Li. I got all of this because my grandfather once devoted his life to your grandfather. Why did my grandfather pass away so early? Was it not because he died in his prime to save his grandfather? Qin Li, it was your family who caused my family to perish and make me an orphan. Now, you are showing kindness to me, to whom? Red Jean was about to be infuriated and laughed at by the shameless Qin Jiarui. The little girl spoke eloquently and didn't give up. This is the first time I've heard of a servant who is loyal to his master. He accidentally fell ill and got injured, and became the master's fault. Qin Jiarui, an ungrateful person, is talking about you, a despicable person. But it's also true that you can do ugly things such as seducing an unmarried husband and having hidden birthmarks. Is there anything else you can't do? I feel dirty talking to a woman like you. As she spoke, Hong Jin sarcastically looked at the blind Prince Xiao and continued. Prince Xiao has a special habit of not liking real aristocratic ladies, but he likes to have affairs and secret appointments with sluts. We can't control it, but as my young lady just said, you understand that you have nothing to do with our Marquis' mansion now. But Qin Jiarui, this slut, is still a slave in the Marquis' mansion. If the crown prince doesn't want his future child to be labeled as a slave in life, he should quickly buy someone with money. Otherwise, even if this lowly maid dares to act against her master, even if she is killed by a stick, the Jingzhou mansion cannot control it. You dare. Seeing Xiao Ji fiercely throwing fire at Red Jean, Lan Qi, who remained silent, suddenly dodged forward. While pulling Red Jean behind to protect her, her right hand had already landed on the soft sword she was wearing on her left waist. Seeing Lan Qi's movements, Qin Jiarui was frightened and quickly stepped forward to grab Xiao Ji, fearing that he would suffer an accident. Qin Li naturally noticed Qin Jiarui's movements and smiled, reminding her. If Prince Xiao wants to lose his temper, he also needs to see whose territory he is standing on. These two maids beside me, one civil and one martial, are not easy to deal with. Lan Qi is my martial servant, and his soft sword requires my elder brother's personal guidance. At the same time, he has no problem fighting 7 or 8 strong men. Prince Xiao has been soaking in the nest of wealth and wealth all year round, but he must be careful, otherwise, if he is injured by Lan Qi, he may suffer. Upon hearing Qin Li's words, Xiao Ji turned to Qin Jiarui, who was holding onto his arm, to verify. Seeing Qin Jiarui nodding at him, he took 2 steps back with fear. Seeing his cowardly appearance, Qin Li felt even more disgusted. She really can't figure out how blind she used to be, that's why she fell in love with such a thing. Xiao Ji also noticed Qin Li's disdain towards him, and his flickering gaze scanned Lan Qi's expressionless face several times before pretending to be tough and saying, if there really is any kind of master, there will be some kind of servant. It's really crude. Qin Li countered with a faint tone, yes, the three of us masters and servants are not as knowledgeable and witty as you. Look, you can do things like adding fragrance to red sleeves and singing like roosters and dogs. I believe you two wild mandarin ducks will still recite a few sour poems in your boudoir while they are in a romantic relationship. TSK, in that situation, it must not be crude or unbearable. Xiao Ji was stabbed by Qin Li's words and was about to vomit blood, especially Qin. She couldn't even lift her head and could only tilt her neck to support herself. You really don't know shame. Qin Li chuckled and said, in this world, there is someone who can do something shameless, but has to hear words of shame. It's really ridiculous, Xiao Ji. No matter what purpose you appear in my Marquis' mansion today, I can tell you now that as long as Qin Li lives for a day, you can never take any advantage of my Marquis' mansion again. If I were you at this moment, I would quickly take out my money to buy this lowly maid and leave quickly, so as not to stay here and embarrass myself. Qin clenched her lower lip and stared at Qin Li as she sat back in the top position. The fierce gaze completely tore apart the white lotus she had previously pretended to be, making her look both sinister and twisted. Xiao Ji is indeed unwilling to continue standing here being humiliated. Today's trip was not worth the loss. I thought I could successfully win the beauty back, but unfortunately, Qin Li, who used to obey him obediently, seems to have fallen into a trap today. Not only did she have deep hostility towards him, but she even realized his shortcomings. Xiao Ji glanced at Qin in his arms, thinking of her concealment and deception towards him. Looking at her delicate appearance, which was no different from before, he suddenly felt a sense of disgust in his heart. He only found out today that Qin was not a young lady who had been living in the Marquis' mansion for many years, but rather a lowly servant. Unexpectedly, he had been familiar with the people of the Marquis' mansion for several years and did not know that there was still this secret. But what bothered him even more was that Qin, this woman, had never actively confessed to him from beginning to end. Otherwise, he would not have been so passive in front of Qin Li. Xiao Ji suppressed his dissatisfaction and knew that this was not a good time to hold Qin accountable. As Qin Li said, he cannot let his first child be born as a servant. Even for the sake of the reputation of the royal family, he must buy Qin slave status from Qin Li's hands. Okay, Qin Li, you're ruthless. Tell me, how much silver do you need to give me Jiaorui's servant status? Qin Li flipped through her delicate white palm and, after raising her eyebrows, extended 5 fingers toward Xiao Ji. Xiao Ji snorted coldly, okay, it's just 5,000 taels of silver. I'll reward you, Crown Prince. Qin Li smiled and flipped her delicate white hands back and forth, saying in a slow voice, who said it's 5,000 taels of silver? I said, 10,000, too. Chapter 6. I am the robber. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 50,000 taels. Qin Li, why don't you go grab it? Qin Li gently flicked her broken hair in her ear and said, this time Crown Prince Xiao finally said the right thing. That's right, I'm just grabbing it now. Qin Li, don't bully others too much. Xiao Ji trembled all over. Qin Li slowly blinked the pupils of autumn water's rippling eyes and looked at Xiao Ji, who was blushing with excitement. Don't you think the scene before you is very familiar? Just now, the Crown Prince himself said, I came to our Marquis' mansion today to take advantage of the fire. Why? Suddenly, my identity changed, and I couldn't bear the taste of it anymore. It's better to avoid doing things like, heaven is watching and, creating evil. Otherwise, you will definitely receive retribution. Xiao Ji, think about the past. When our Marquis' mansion was in full swing, how did you flatter and please us? But now my father and brother are fighting outside, and the Marquis' mansion has just encountered setbacks. You are actually the first one to bully us. Are you planning to have 2 maids and 1 husband in the future? Huh, it's just a foolish dream. Let me tell you, 50,000 taels is still my mercy. You know, what you bought back was 2 lives, or is it that in your eyes, Qin is not worth this price? At this point, Qin Li looked at Qin, whose face was pale with a smile but not a smile. After sighing with regret, she added. Of course, if the crown prince cannot bear to part with this silver, I will not force him to buy or sell. So I will order someone to take this despicable person down and deal with him according to the rules of our Marquis' mansion. As soon as the words fell, Lan Qi took a step forward. The powerful women waiting outside the flower hall also heard the commotion and rolled up their sleeves in anger, ready to rush in and drag down the lowly maid who had brought shame to the Marquis' mansion. Qin dared not stay at this moment when she saw Qin Li tearing her face apart from her. She vigorously shook Xiao Ji's arm and begged, Brother Ji, save me. Qin Li is ruthless. If you keep me, both me and the child will die. Xiao Ji looked at the fearful expression on Qin face, and his gaze swept over her flat lower abdomen. Finally, gritting his teeth, he agreed, okay, 50,000 taels is 50,000 taels. I'll have someone bring you the silver tomorrow. Just today. Qin Li couldn't refuse, I want to see the silver today. Xiao Ji gritted his teeth in anger and said, Qin Li, 50,000 taels of silver is not a small amount. You should give me time to make up for it. Are you still afraid that I won't be able to repay you? Qin Li chuckled and said, now, you Xiao Ji no longer have any credibility in my eyes. I'm worried that you might default on your debts, isn't it normal? Besides, the Linyang prince's mansion has a big family, can't we still gather enough 50,000 taels of silver in a day? Xiao Ji's blocked face turned red and speechless. Others don't know, but he knows best that although the Linyang prince's mansion is a prestigious family, after several generations of unruly offspring squandered their wealth, their family has long been weak, and now they only have empty titles. Otherwise, he wouldn't have tried his best to curry favor with Qin Li these years. Qin Li, as the legitimate daughter of the Dingbei Marquis' mansion, is wealthy and has a rich dowry. As long as she enters the family in the future, she will be able to solve the problem of the royal family's lack of money. Moreover, he has known Qin Li for many years, and with Qin Li's intelligence, it is impossible not to know that the royal family is short of money. But now this woman is pressing so hard step by step, clearly deliberately making him embarrassed. But unfortunately, the current stalemate was caused by him alone. So even if this bitter fruit is difficult to swallow, he must grit his teeth and swallow it. Okay, Qin Li, today you are forcing me like this. It will be difficult for our relationship to turn around in the future. Aren't you just daring to command and control based on your identity as the legitimate young lady of the Dingbei Marquis' mansion? When your father and brother are punished and your Marquis' mansion becomes a bait for the wolves, I will make you cry and kneel in front of me, begging me. When the time comes, we will calculate new and old grudges together. Faced with Xiao Ji's threat, Qin Li didn't take it to heart at all. Prince Xiao's dream was quite good, but unfortunately, there won't be such a day. Xiao Ji's chest swelled with anger, and he shouted at the entrance of the flower hall. Immediately, a personal attendant came in to wait for dispatch. Whispering a few words to the attendant quickly left after giving Qin Li a slightly meaningful glance. After the 2 sticks of incense had passed, the attendant appeared in front of Xiao Ji, panting and holding a sandalwood box. Xiao Ji opened the wooden box with a painful expression on his face. After counting the items in the box, he asked someone to bring the wooden box to Qin Li. Even though the Wang mansion has some wealth, it is impossible to gather 50,000 taels of silver in such a short time. Here are 20,000 taels of silver bills, as well as a land deed for the Jingzhong restaurant and several shops houses in Qinyao Lane. The total amount is enough to cover that 30,000 taels of silver. Upon hearing Xiao Ji say the 3 words, Qin Li unexpectedly glanced at him again. Just because the shops and restaurants in Qin were all dowries for Princess Linyang during her lifetime, I didn't expect this spendthrift to even move his deceased biological mother's dowry in order to redeem Qin from her hands. Moreover, Qin is close to the main street of the capital city, with a dense flow of people and the best business to do. Xiao Ji used the shops in this alley to offset her, so she probably didn't have anything else to use to offset her debts. No wonder this scumbag had such a painful expression on his face. It was really satisfying to have him spend his money here. Qin Li, who was feeling relieved, gave a glance to Hong Jin, and the little girl immediately had someone bring Qin slave book and rudely threw it on the face of this shameless woman. It's good to leave. I'll settle in the northern Marquis mansion and only raise people, not livestock. Qin clenched the slave register in her hand and shouted in a resentful voice at Hong Jin, "You lowly servant, dare you humiliate me?" Red Jean couldn't stand this lowly Huff and said, "Who are you called a lowly servant? You are a lowly servant. If you don't humiliate yourself, do you still want me to play gongs, drums, and make a public announcement, telling the world how you climbed the bed by seductive means?" Of course, our Marquis mansion is currently at the forefront of the storm, so we are not afraid of losing this person. We just don't know if the Linyang prince's mansion is willing to accompany you to lose face together. After speaking, Hong Jin looked at Xiao Ji like a good play. Qin couldn't resist the eloquent red brocade and angrily shook Xiao Ji's arm, implying that he would support her. But now Xiao Ji still feels sorry for his 50,000 taels of silver. Faced with Qin entanglement, where can he still have any good temper? He quickly threw away Qin hand that was holding his arm and looked at her coldly. "Do you still think today is not embarrassing enough? For you and the child in your belly, I have spared everything. If you still don't know how to restrain yourself, stay at the Duke's mansion in Dingbei." Qin followed Xiao Ji, using all means possible to make him happy. In fact, Xiao Ji also loved her tricks very much. Every time he was with her, he would say sweet words. How could he have been as sharp and harsh with her as he is now? On the spot, she was stunned and stood still, with a snow-white face, stunned and afraid to speak again. Seeing Qin unlucky appearance, Hong Jin felt a surge of joy in her heart. She didn't believe how good a woman with a belly full of bad water would come to in the future. After scolding Qin Xiao Ji looked at Qin Li, who remained calm and composed. His gaze touched Qin Li's face, which was as beautiful as jade. His pupils suddenly shrank, and his strong unwillingness was more like the surging river water, fiercely blocking his heart. How could he be willing to let go of such a beautiful woman, coupled with the overwhelming wealth and prestige of the Dingbei Marquis mansion, so easily? So, with a malicious smile on his lips, Xiao Ji took a step forward and said, "Qin Li, remember my words, I will make you beg me one day." Chapter 7. Stability of the overall situation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Watching the pair of rodents leave in front of her, Qin Li's persistent breath also dissipated. I saw that her whole face was wax white, almost leaning against the back of a chair to barely support her spirit. Red Jean supported the young lady, who was weak due to illness, with a heart-wrenching expression, tears streaming down her face. Who would have thought that when the Marquis mansion was in trouble, the first person to stab us with a knife would be this pair of despicable people? Prince Xiao was a hypocrite, and in vain, I used to say many good things about him in the young lady's ear. I naively thought he would be the young lady's kind person, but now it seems that he can't even compare to a young disciple overnight. Qin Li had a miserable smile on her face, and Red Jean claimed to have misread someone. Isn't Qin Li blind? If all the premonitions in the dream are true, then she is the most blind and heart-blind. Mistakenly believing in a despicable person not only harms oneself, but also kills close relatives and loyal followers around her. However, despite suffering from illness, the mercy of heaven gave her a dream reminder and gave her the opportunity to change her destiny. And she will not disappoint this opportunity. She must protect herself and everything she cherishes in this storm. Qin Li took a few deep breaths to calm her mind as quickly as possible. Then he took Red Brocade's hand and said solemnly, "Now that my father and brother are fighting outside, the situation of life and death is unknown. The Marquis' mansion is already a target of public criticism in the capital, but I believe that man can conquer nature. As long as we stabilize the situation at this time, don't let the Marquis' mansion become chaotic, wait patiently, and we will definitely wait for good news of my father and brother's return. As long as father and brother can be safe, even if they will face the Emperor's thunderous anger when they return, as long as their lives are alive, the Marquis' mansion will not easily fall." Red Jean looked at the young lady with exceptionally bright eyes and nodded vigorously. "Miss is right. No matter how rumors spread outside, as long as we guard our home well, everything will be better when the Marquis and the three young masters come back." Qin Li nodded and ordered in an orderly manner, "The most important thing right now is not to anger Qinjiarui for this disgusting incident, but to restrain the people in the mansion. Hong Jin, you are the most capable maid around me. Before my father left the capital, he entrusted me with the management of the Marquis' mansion. My current words in the mansion are of utmost importance. You can pass on my orders and inform all the courtyards in the mansion. From now on, the Marquis' mansion will tightly close its doors. Except for necessary purchases, servants in the mansion are not allowed to go out freely, let alone spread various false rumors in the mansion. If anyone dares to disturb the people's hearts in the mansion at this time, everything will be dealt with according to the rules in the mansion." Looking at the young lady who quickly regained her composure and made immediate arrangements, Hong Jin felt confident and encouraged. "Yes." Qin Li turned her head to Lan Qi, who had always been quiet and reserved, and ordered, "Lan Qi, you are a martial servant next to me. Your martial arts are personally taught by my elder brother, and even the guards in the mansion may not be able to get an advantage from you. Now I want you to take over the responsibilities of the guards in the mansion and manage all the guards in the mansion. You may be able to do it." Lan Qi looked at the young lady in surprise and said, "Miss, do you believe I can do it well?" Qin Li stood up with her soft body and walked up to Lan Qi. "You just saw it, and now, I have completely offended the Linyang prince's mansion. Xiao Ji is a vengeful person, and that kind of villain will definitely cause trouble in the future. The Marquis' mansion has over 100 lives, and I cannot trust others. Only by entrusting it to you can I completely feel at ease." As she spoke, a faint bitterness appeared in Qin Li's eyes. She reached out and grabbed Lan Qi's hand, her voice trembling. "Lan Qi, you have a stubborn personality and are not willing to be just a powerless little girl. Therefore, even if you have endured all the hardships, you choose to embark on the path of a martial servant. Now that the Marquis' mansion is facing internal and external troubles, only a few of you are trustworthy people around me. In this situation, you are also my support. If I don't trust you, who can I trust?" In her dream, she mistakenly believed in Xiao Ji, the villain, and married him with a sky-shattering dowry. Later, she was deceived by his sweet words and repeatedly missed the best opportunity to rescue her loved ones. It wasn't until the whole mansion collapsed and Hong Jin died tragically that she regained consciousness from the lies. At that time, only the loyal Lan Qi remained beside her. And in order to rescue her from the royal mansion, Lan Qi fought against Xiao Ji's minions alone and died exhausted. She couldn't forget that in her dream, Lan Qi was still apologizing to her at the last moment of her breath. She said that as a martial servant, she should protect her master Zhou Quan in order to not disappoint the favor of the Marquis' adoption. However, in the end, she could only bear hatred and end up alone, feeling uneasy. Under the influence of the yellow spring, she had no face to treat her dear eldest son and Marquis. Now, she looked at the intact Lan Qi standing in front of her, without any injuries or bloodstains on her body, but her heart was sore. The two close maids beside her, Lan-Chi, were usually the least talkative but also the most patient. Now that she knows that Lan-Chi's greatest wish is to protect her and the Marquis' mansion, how can she not give it a chance? Besides, her Lan-Chi has this ability completely. Lan-Chi was watched by the young lady's bright eyes, and for some reason, she always felt that today's young lady was particularly different from before. Watching the young lady entrust such a heavy responsibility to her, she was greatly encouraged and firmly agreed, "Please rest assured, young lady. I will definitely guard the Marquis' mansion like an iron barrel and work with the young lady to protect this home." Looking at Lan-Chi with a heroic aura between her eyebrows and eyes, Qin Li breathed a sigh of relief in her heart and once again felt grateful for the timely appearance of this prophetic dream. Mississippi, it's all the fault of the old slave. It's the old slave who didn't take good care of the door, causing Miss to be so bullied today. Just as Qin Li was instructing the two capable maids around her step by step to handle matters, the voices of heartbreak came from far to near. Qin Li looked up and a soft expression appeared in her eyes. "Uncle Liao, your legs are inconvenient. Run slowly," she said. Liao Zhong, as the chief steward of the Marquis' mansion and the confidant of the northern Marquis Qin Lanshan, can be considered to have watched the young masters and ladies in the mansion grow up. The news of the defeat came from Beimingwen, and the Marquis' mansion was in an awkward situation in the capital. Liao Zhong has been busy like an ant on the hot pot these days, trying to gather information from the entire mansion while also personally going out to inquire about the news of Beimingwen. I thought today would continue to be spent in this agonizing time as usual. Unexpectedly, as soon as Liao Zhong returned from outside to gather information, he heard the gatekeeper inform Xiao Shizhi of the Linyang prince's mansion of the disgusting incident he had caused with Qin Jiarui in the mansion. How could Liao Zhong, who was eager to protect the lord, resist this? Suddenly, disregarding his old leg condition, he limped towards the flower hall, his eyes turning red with anger and his fists clenched tightly. Chapter 8. Saving Lives with Money. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Liao Zhong looked at the young lady who was clearly still carrying a sickly aura, with tears in his pained eyes. Before leaving the capital, the Marquis entrusted the young lady and the Marquis' mansion to the care of the old servant, which was incompetent. Not only did he disappoint the Marquis' instructions, but he also insulted the young lady today. The old servant will take someone to the Linyang prince's mansion to demand an explanation for the young lady. Even if he dies, it will definitely not make those shameless people feel better. Looking at Uncle Liao, who was about to turn around and demand an explanation for himself, Qin Li quickly shouted out, "Uncle Liao, I'm really okay. Although I've been humiliated today, Xiao Ji hasn't benefited from me either. Believe it or not, you see." As she spoke, Qin Li pushed out the sandalwood box containing silver bills and the deed of the shop, and told Uncle Liao about abandoning Xiao Jishio. Looking at Uncle Liao's surprised expression, Qin Li added, "I used to have a hard time understanding people and mistakenly regarded these treacherous couple as the most important relatives and lovers in my life. Now, I want to thank them for being so anxious these past few days that they can reveal their true colors in front of me, so that I can see their true faces clearly. Upon careful consideration, if it weren't for what happened today, I would have continued to be deceived by them and kept such treacherous deeds by my side. The real disaster waiting for the Marquis' mansion in the future would have been the downfall." Liao Zhong followed Qin Lanshan and witnessed many storms. As the young lady spoke, although he felt sorry for her plight, he also agreed with her words. However, thinking of Qin Jiarui's immature white-eyed wolf, Liao Zhong gritted his teeth. Miss is still kind. If the old servant wants to say that Qin Jiarui, the lowly maid who dares to seduce Mrs. Fiancé A.E., shouldn't have released her slave status so happily. This kind of lowly person who eats inside out should break her leg and hand it over to others for sale, which is her true destination. Qin Li looked at Uncle Liao, who was still angry, and playfully smiled. Don't you think that being taken back by Xiao Ji can really establish a foothold in the Linyang prince's mansion? Xiao Ji is already a fickle and ungrateful person, and his current love for Qin Jiarui is more due to freshness and excitement. But after this freshness, do you think how much more sincerity will Xiao Ji put on Qin Jiarui? Besides, today Xiao Ji took out his biological mother's dowry for Qin Jiarui, and this account will only end up on Qin Jiarui's head. You have to watch it. Sometimes it may seem wealthy at first glance, but in reality, it is even more agonizing than death. Red Jean thought of Xiao Ji's low growl at Qin Jiarui before leaving and immediately agreed. That's right, Crown Prince Xiao usually doesn't have a lot of money on hand. If he had to pay such a large amount of blood today, it would be painful for him to turn around. He will have to bear this debt on Qin Jiarui's head sooner or later. As for Qin Jiarui, who is a promiscuous person and repays kindness with kindness, it's hard to say whether he will wait for her in the future. After listening to Qin Li's advice, Uncle Liao's depression finally eased. However, as he looked at the young lady who had obviously lost a circle, his heart was still filled with sadness. If the Marquis and the three young masters were still here, even if he gave Prince Xiao 10 courage, he wouldn't dare to bully the young lady like this. In the end, it is still because of the great defeat at Beimingwen and the unclear battlefield situation that the current situation of the Marquis' mansion is so difficult due to the great anger of the Holy Emperor. Qin Li handed the sandalwood box to the clever Red Jean and advised, "You can gather the silver bills and commercial land deeds inside into my private property. Red Jean, from now on, you need to organize my private property well and calculate how much money I still have in my hands." Red Jean took the sandalwood box with both hands and asked in confusion, "Miss, suddenly ordered me to tidy up your private property for what? Does Miss need silver?" Qin Li scanned the large flower hall and said with a determined expression, "I have said that I will guard this house for my father and brother, so we cannot sit idly by in the capital. My father and brother are currently fighting in the north, and my battlefield is in the capital." As she spoke, Qin Li asked Liao Zhong, "Uncle Liao, I heard you went out to inquire about the latest intelligence from Baiming Pass. Do you have any news?" Liao Zhong let out a long sigh and frowned. Since the news of the great defeat at Beimingwen 3 days ago, various rumors have been flying in the capital. It is said that the emperor has sent troops stationed around Beimingwen to rescue, but it is uncertain whether they will arrive in time. Beimingwen is the most important pass north of our Daliang. If it is really lost, the flames of war will probably spread southward. Listening to Uncle Liao's intelligence, Qin Li frowned, allowing herself to recall everything she had seen and experienced in her dream over and over again. If the prediction in the dream is correct, good news will be transmitted from Baiming Pass in less than half a month. The pass will be defended, and the northern barbarian cavalry will retreat 50 miles. And this credit and honor will be attributed to the head of the station General Wu Yong, who went to Beimingwen to support. And Wu Yong will take advantage of this great victory, stepping on the past reputation and achievements of her father and brother, to become the new commander of the Dingbei army, deeply trusted by the emperor, and will also become a new nobleman in the court. In her dream, she also thought that General Wu Yong was a remarkable talent. But it wasn't until later, a few years after she married Xiao Ji, that she accidentally heard that General Wu was from Prince Ji Heng's family. She became wary and began to doubt the truth about her father and brother's defeat at Beimingwen that year. The eldest prince, Ji Heng, was born in the palace. Despite his humble status, he had great ambition and was eager to win the throne. Therefore, he repeatedly tried to win over his father, but was politely refused. Ji Heng was determined to gain military power, but his father never cooperated. If his father and brother were defeated and fell out of favor with the emperor, then his opportunity would come. Coincidentally, the person who later supported Beimingwen was also his Ji Heng's person. When Wu Yong replaced his father and brother were escorted to the capital due to poor guarding of the pass. On the way, due to being attacked by bandits, 4 of my father and brother died tragically, and none of them survived and returned to Beijing for trial. So, in the defeat at Beimingwen, no one knows what exactly happened, only Wu Yong's one-sided words remain. And these one-sided words are all unfavorable accusations and incriminations against his father and brother. Now it seems that the defeat at Beimingwen is really suspicious. What troubles her even more is that her father and brother are both fierce warriors on the battlefield. How could they have died tragically at the hands of a mere bandit while being escorted? Perhaps it was someone in the capital who did not want their father and brother to come back for trial, that caused them to die in a foreign land under the pretext of encountering bandits. After sorting out these things, Qin Li broke out in a cold sweat. She knew that a huge conspiracy had already attacked her father and brother, and in order to save them, she had to make an immediate deployment. Therefore, she dared not delay any longer and looked up at Liao Zhong. "Uncle Liao, you are the steward of the mansion. You must have a rough idea of how much wealth can be moved in the mansion. I want you to quickly compile a booklet of the movable wealth in the whole mansion and hand it over to me as soon as possible." Liao Zhong looked at the young lady's tense expression and realized that the situation was not good. "Miss, do you know something? Also, what are you going to do when you suddenly count the money in the mansion?" Qin Li lowered her eyes slightly, making it impossible to see the coldness in her eyes. As the saying goes, wealth is saved from disaster. If possible, I will use this sum of money to exchange for the chance of my father and brother's life and the future of the Marquis' mansion. Upon hearing these words, Hong Jin immediately lowered her head and looked at the sandalwood box in her hand. Now, she finally understood why the young lady suddenly demanded 50,000 taels of silver from Xiao Shitzi and Lion. Originally, in the young lady's heart, there was already a plan to rescue the Marquis and the three young masters. Chapter 9. The Irresistible Temptation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next day the sky is not yet bright, and the lights in the Han Dan courtyard have already lit up. After drinking a bowl of medicinal soup without changing her expression, Qin Li continued to write something on the white rice paper with a wolf hair pen. Red Jean felt sorry for Mrs. Body and draped a cloak over her shoulder, unable to help but mutter, "Miss has just recovered from her illness, and it is time to take care of herself. How can we work so hard? If the old illness relapses, it will not be good." After finishing her last sentence, Qin Li finally breathed a sigh of relief. While blowing the still wet ink on the paper, he carefully examined it and said, "My father and brother are dying in Beiming Pass. If you want to save them, you have to race against time. I don't have time to slowly recover now. Don't worry, I know my body is fine. But..." Before Red Jean could finish speaking, she was interrupted by Lan Qi, who walked in angrily with a black face. Qin Li heard the commotion and looked up. "What's wrong? Who's bothering you?" Lan Qi clenched his soft sword around his waist, his eyes burning with flames. "I followed the young lady's instructions and sent someone to secretly monitor the Baihua Yuan. I thought the whole mansion was under martial law now, and even if they were a bit crooked, they would restrain themselves. But I didn't expect that the person at the Baihua Yuan was really a skilled person with the courage to secretly transfer the property in the mansion while the night was unclear. What? Aunt Yang dares to do this?" Red Jean was furious and said in a resentful voice, "Back then, she was just a maid in the study of the Marquis. She took advantage of the Marquis's drunkenness and pretended to seduce him by pretending to be a lady. If she hadn't seen her pregnant and had her legs broken long ago, she would have been selling. This kind of cheap hoof who took the initiative to climb onto the master's bed would have been eye-catching. I didn't expect that she would still dare to be a thief now. Why, does she think that the Marquis' mansion is facing a great crisis and want to take up the wealth in the mansion and secretly run for her life?" Listening to Hongjin's indignant words, Qin Li fell into silence. In the dream of foreknowledge, my father's concubine, Aunt Yang, would indeed take advantage of the difficulties in the Marquis' mansion and take advantage of the wealth in the mansion to escape, but none of this was enough to make her angry. What truly made her unforgivable was that Aunt Yang was so greedy and afraid that she would just run for her life. She even took her 6-year-old brother with her. Finally, after squandering the stolen money, she went crazy and joined forces with her gambling lover to sell her little brother to Renyazi. She will never forget that in her dream, when she retrieved her little brother, she saw a small, emaciated body covered in injuries. Tiger poison doesn't eat children. She couldn't understand how hard and cold that woman had to have in order to do such a heinous act. It was precisely because of this that Qin Li quietly reminded Lan-Chi to pay attention to the blue flower garden after taking over the protection of the mansion. And this time, she will definitely not tolerate the treachery anymore, watching her obedient little brother turn into a corpse again. Qin Li lightly pursed her red lips and looked up at Lan-Chi. Don't scare the snake with grass, continue to keep an eye on Aunt Yang and all the servants in the blue flower courtyard. Follow the clues and find the person who is helping Aunt Yang transfer the property outside. If you want to deal with these thieves, then you must take the stolen goods and uproot them. Lan-Chi's eyes lit up and he said, yes. As she spoke, Lan-Chi was about to leave when Qin Li stopped her and said, Lan-Chi, you have good lightness skills. Please quietly leave the mansion and run to the Wei Prince's mansion for me. Wei Wang's mansion. Listening to these three slightly unfamiliar words, both Hongjin and Lan-Chi turned their heads together to look at Qin Li. Qin Li carefully folded the carefully checked letters and put them in an envelope, explaining carefully, if someone from the Wei Prince's mansion asks you, you don't need to say much. Just ask the Wei Prince to read the letter, and finally, leave a sentence saying, I can help the Wei Prince achieve his wishes. Lan-Chi took the letter with both hands and a hesitant expression on his face. I shouldn't have doubted miss, it's just Mississippi. The Wei King you're talking about refers to the current third Prince Ji Wuchuan. Although I have lived in the backyard for a long time, I have heard that this third prince is physically weak and has been sick for a long time. Why did Miss write to him? Red Jean quickly added, yes, our Marquis' mansion used to have little interaction with the Wei Prince's mansion. How could Miss contact this inconspicuous prince in the court at this moment? Qin Li took a light sniff at the ink fragrance floating on her fingertips. Although her expression remained unchanged, her eyes were already filled with excitement. If it were her former self, she would naturally overlook this Wei King, who has always been inconspicuous in the capital, like Hongjin and Lan-Chi. But with that prediction dream, the situation was different. The dream suggests that in the coming years, it is this low-key, humble, and discreet Prince of Wei who will gradually move from an inconspicuous prince to the center of court power. While engaging in a power struggle, he also sat on the throne representing supreme power. In the dream, Shao Ji, that despicable person, was holding on to Ji Wuchuan's thigh with her dowry and the rich heritage of the Marquis' mansion. It was only after Ji Wuchuan ascended the throne that he became a new noble in the capital through his achievements in the dragon industry. Now that she knows that King Ji Wuchuan of Wei will be the one who laughs the last, she certainly cannot miss this character and find a way to make friends with him. If possible, she would also use Ji Wuchuan to rescue her father and brother and help her home mansion regain its footing in the storm in the capital. She couldn't say these words to Hongjin and Lan-Chi, she could only think of a reason and say. Even if Ji Wuchuan is low-key and transparent, he is still the deceased Empress Yuan as the legitimate prince of the current Holy Emperor, and his status cannot be underestimated. Now that the situation on the Beimingguan battlefield is unclear, and we have just offended the Linyang Prince's mansion in the capital, of course, we need to find a way to find a support for ourselves at this time. Ordinary noble families dare not lend a helping hand to our Marquis' mansion at this time, but Ji Wuchuan is different. He is a member of the imperial family and has some say in front of the emperor and courtiers. As long as he is willing to stand up and protect our Marquis' mansion at this time, our situation will not be too difficult. Lan-Chi still had some doubts. Miss, is it certain that the servant will give this letter to the King of Wei, and he will help us? Qin Li smiled mysteriously, his clear pupils flickering with a brilliant halo. I wrote in the letter what he had been dreaming of. Don't worry, even though Ji Wuchuan knew that the Dingbei Marquis' mansion was hot at this time, he couldn't resist such a great temptation. Qi looked at the confident young lady and felt a momentary daze in front of her. Unconsciously, her heart, which had been tightly held, slowly relaxed at this moment. She seemed to have been bewitched and looked firmly at her own young lady. Since the young lady personally said that this letter sent to the Wei Prince's mansion could change the situation of the Marquis' mansion, even if she were to die, she would still deliver this letter to the Wei Prince's hands. Chapter 10. Exile Immortals to Earth. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After several days of continuous rain, I finally saw sunlight today. At the moment when Chu Yi, the chief guard of the Wei Prince's mansion, stepped into his study, he saw the prince standing in front of the bookshelf flipping through ancient books. Looking at the thin figure of the prince, Chu Yi's heart twitched fiercely. He picked up a familiar cloak on one side, carefully draped it over the prince's shoulder, and spoke, "I don't know how the servants in the study serve. As the weather turns cooler, the prince needs to be more careful not to catch the cold." Feeling the warmth emanating from his back, Wuchuan made a faint smile and turned around. In an instant, sunlight shone through the window coffin and fell quietly and gently on his delicate and handsome face. Under the slender black eyelashes, the glass-colored pupils are cool and noble, with a straight nose bridge that stands tall like the towering peaks of Kanglan Mountain in the northern region. The thin red lips are moist like morning dew, truly more enticing than the lipped lips. Such a peerless appearance should have been a topic of discussion for everyone in the capital long ago, but now in the capital, anyone who mentions him as Wuchuan will describe him with irrelevant words such as physical weakness and living in seclusion. The person behind all of this is the malicious woman sitting high in the back seat of the deep palace. Wuchuan seemed to feel Chu Ye's silent anger, lowered his head and coughed twice before saying, "I'm fine, by the way, I asked you to pay attention to the movements in the palace. How's it going?" Chu Yi dared not neglect and immediately replied, "Everything is as expected by the prince." Since the unfavorable news of the war was transmitted from Beimingwen, the emperor's anger has grown stronger. Today, he smashed the memorials of the courtiers in the imperial study, and I heard that even the empress has been shut down. Upon hearing news about that woman, Wuchuan's eyes flew with a hint of darkness. After a few breaths, her tone became faint, making it difficult to discern her emotions. Over the years, she has also been favored in the palace. It is inevitable that she will forget her comfortable life for a long time. Today's closed door is also a wake-up call for her to know what identity she truly is in the heart of her father. Chu Yi grew up with the prince and naturally understood what the deepest scar in his heart was. The current empress is not the empress dowager of the emperor, nor the biological mother of the prince, but the deceased empress dowager's biological sister and the prince's biological aunt. In theory, due to this blood relationship, one should be very close to the prince in the future. However, only a few people around the prince know that the immortal death of Empress Yuan was not simple, and even the prince's weak body was closely related to that malicious woman. Thinking of the woman who had done all her evil deeds now in the palace, and even her two useless sons rising with the tide, Chu Yi felt aggrieved in her heart for her own prince. Wuchuan scanned the indignant Chu Yi with the end of his eyes, closed the ancient book in his hand, and spoke slowly. "When can you be more stable with your temperament? I have told you a long time ago that you should not express your disgust towards the one in the palace so clearly. Even if the Wei Prince's mansion is protected by the Golden Armor Guard, it is difficult to ensure that the walls have ears." Chu Yi immediately realized her mistake and lowered her head to admit, "It was my subordinate's negligence." "Well, your temperament was also tolerated by this king." Wuchuan waved his hand helplessly and continued the previous topic. Qin Li led his troops well. He was not a mindless warrior, otherwise, the Dingbei Marquis' mansion would not have grown to its current size and heritage in his hands. The news of the unfavorable situation in the Beiming Pass battle suddenly spread to the capital, and it made the court boil overnight. Such a speed is extraordinary. Chu Yi learned his knowledge by following the prince. Upon hearing these words, he sensed something suspicious and said, "What the prince means is that there is something fishy about the Beimingwen war." This is a national war. Who dares to tamper with such a foolish thing? A haze flashed through Ji Wuchuan's eyes, and a blurry shadow quickly flashed through his mind. Just as he was about to catch the shadow, the announcement from the doorman interrupted his thoughts. Prince, the person from Dingbei Marquis' mansion is seeking an audience outside. Chu Yi was surprised and said, "Why did the people from Dingbei Marquis' mansion come to our royal mansion?" "Your Highness, there is only one legitimate young lady guarding the capital in Dingbei Marquis' mansion now." "What did she send someone to do in our royal mansion?" Not to mention that Chu Yi couldn't figure it out, even Ji Wuchuan, who has always had exquisite 7 orifices, was somewhat unclear. After a moment of silence, he asked, "Can you tell me if anyone has anything to do with me?" The servant knelt at the door in a proper manner and replied, "That person said that she has something the prince wants in her hand. She begged the prince to see it." "Ha! What a big breath! My lord, the prince of the heavenly dynasty, is unparalleled in nobility. What does he need to get from the Dingbei Marquis' mansion?" Chu Yi rolled his eyes impatiently and spoke out to drive away the people. "When are the servants of our royal mansion so unruly? All sorts of people come to report, just saying that the prince is unwell and missing." The servant kneeling at the door of the study struggled for a moment, considering the weight of Director Chu beside the prince. Just as he was about to go out and drive out the people, he heard the prince's cold voice. "Bring people in." The servant responded and immediately ran to follow suit. Chu Yi looked sideways at his own prince and said, "Prince, the current Dingbei Marquis' mansion is a hot potato. Isn't it inappropriate for you to see them at this time?" Ji Wuchuan squinted his glass-colored eyes and looked out through the window sash at the dazzling sunlight. "I want to know what waves can still be stirred up in the Dingbei Marquis' mansion at this time," he said. In no time, Lan-Chi, dressed in military attire, was taken to the study by the servant. Chu Yi personally poured a cup of hot tea for his own prince and playfully glanced at the little girl kneeling on the ground waiting for questioning, with a light tone. "It's really interesting. Nowadays, the war at Beimingwen is tight, and everyone in the capital turns pale when it comes to the Dingbei Marquis' mansion. In this situation, there are still people who dare to walk outside in the attire of the Dingbei army. Is this really fearless or ignorant?" Lan-Chi clenched the young lady's letter in his hand and heard the teasing in the person's tone. Suddenly, an unnamed flame surged in his heart. A resounding and powerful voice came from her mouth, as 100-year-old commander.In.Chief, Dingbei Marquis' mansion is worthy of the emperor's royal family and worthy of the common people. The little girl's military attire represents the supreme glory and pride, and is the determination of tens of thousands of soldiers to fight to protect the thousands of common people in Daliang. Such a loyal act of serving the country has become a mockery in the eyes of the young master. Chu Yi originally wanted to intimidate the little girl who came knocking on her door, but she unexpectedly turned against her. On the spot, I choked a bit. Seeing Chu Ye's emaciated appearance, Ji Wuchuan helplessly supported his forehead, but his scrutinizing gaze fell on Lan-Chi. After a moment of rest, he spoke up and said, "You truly deserve to be the person who came out of the century-old handsome mansion, neither humble nor arrogant. Your young lady has a good command." Lan-Chi was staring at the boy who spoke poorly when he suddenly heard a clear and deep voice coming from behind the desk, and then turned his eyes to look over. I saw the man sitting behind the desk with a graceful and elegant demeanor, swaying like a banished immortal walking out of a painting, making people dare not look directly at him. Born with such magnanimity and charm, one doesn't have to guess the identity of the person who speaks. Lan-Chi quickly presented the young lady's handwritten letter with both hands and kowtowed, "I would like to pay my respects to your highness the Prince of Wei. Today, I have the audacity to disturb you and bring my young lady's letter. Please take some time to observe." Ji Wuchuan tapped his index finger lightly on the table and didn't rush to pick up the letter. "You just wanted someone to pass on a message that you have what I want in your hands. I have been weak since childhood and have a lazy nature, but I don't remember when I had a friendship with Dingbei Marquis' mansion. Upon hearing the gentle refusal in the words of King Wei, Qi did not panic, but firmly believed in all the arrangements of her young lady. Your Highness, my young lady has never been someone who speaks out loud. Since she has written a letter to you, it means she will definitely help you achieve your wishes. If your Highness doesn't believe it, why don't you open the letter and take a look? This can also relieve your doubts, right? Wuchuan looked at Qi's calm and composed expression, and became even more curious about the young lady from the Marquis' mansion in his heart. It seems that Qin Lanshan's daughter is not an easy person to cultivate such outstanding subordinates. So, Wuchuan gestured to Chuyi, and Chuyi immediately stepped forward to receive the letter for the prince, waiting for Wuchuan to open the letter and take a look. In an instant, the originally peaceful expression changed. I saw only a few short lines of words on the letter, but in the middle of this beautiful plum blossom regular script, the word throne fiercely pierced into Wuchuan's eyes like a needle. He groped for those two words with an indistinguishable expression, looking at Qi with a playful expression on his face. He truly deserves to be a member of the Dingbei Marquis' mansion. The servants are resolute and the master is even more daring. Go back and tell your young lady that I will go to the star-picking tower to drink tea tomorrow.